This episode of Twin Cities Trekkies is brought to you by Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor before, let me explain. First of all, it's free. There are creation tools that help you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership required. They'll also help you to distribute your podcast so it can be heard on many different platforms such as Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's all you need in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Okay, everyone, welcome to episode 22 of Twin Cities Trekkies. I am Wes.
And I'm Kenzie.
And today we're going to talk about the influencers of Star Trek. What I mean by that is that the people who have been a success, who made the show, the franchise a success for the last 55 years. People like Gene Roddenberry, Gene L. Kuhn, Rick Berman, Michael Piller, J.J. Abrams, Alex Kurtzman, those kind of people. But there are women in that too. There are women in that. Only a handful of
Yeah,
them. Only like 3 or 4, unfortunately. But it's mostly been men who have been
decision
respond.
makers for a lot of the franchise.
Yes, yeah, which is okay. It's fine. But it. But that's what we're gonna talk about today. I mean, granted, we probably will mince words when we talk about Rick Berman, but
Yeah,
but just give you guys a fair warning. So, to get in touch with us, it is simple. Send us an email at tctrekkiespodcast@gmail.com. Feel free to send us an email. We'll gladly read it and stuff like that. I mean, granted, if you have a very strong opinion of Rick Berman, like he's the greatest thing ever, uh, we'll gladly read it. But definitely. But it's really simple to do that. But that's fine. But and then also you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. The handle is TC Trekkies Pod. Just if you have a comment for that, feel free to do that. It's perfectly fine. I mean, we really don't care. We'll read your comments, um, be it good or bad. But definitely, yeah, we're available on every platform you can think of, or you can also send us a voice message at anchor.fm/Twin Cities Trekkies. Click on that little button again that says message, and just leave a voice message. It could be for any length of period of time. And keep in mind that any comments you may leave may be featured in a future episode of this podcast. Okay, the influencers of Star Trek. I I really don't have a direction to go with this. Regarding this, I
I mean,
just
yeah, I could kind of group it up by these are like different producers throughout the series, and you can kind of feel the influence of them as power shifts between producers and stuff. Like you can feel the shift from like Gene Roddenberry to like Rick Berman to handing things off to change the storyline with J.J. Abrams, and you can feel like Kurtzman Star Trek and like how that feels too. Like they all have kind of a different feeling, and
yes,
it's, I mean, easier to see that in hindsight. But I mean, even during, like, you can see where there were high points and low points in the series because of the direction of these influencers.
yes, definitely. So I think we start with the top with Roddenberry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Roddenberry is the guy who started this whole thing. And he had a hand in creating both the original series and Next Generation. Um, and it's like, his influence is pretty well prominent, especially in the first 2 years of the original series and the first year of Next Generation. Um, because that's when the Next Generation first season was pretty much his last season that he was pretty much hands on before his ill health forced him out and eventually dying. But
Mm-hmm.
and forced him to take a more less of an active role. But yeah, and it's definitely prominent in the first 2 years of the original series. His influence because of the way the stories were written in the first 2 years are pretty strong compared to the last year of the original series because the original series aired on Fridays, but it was earlier in the time slot. But it was in the third season. We all know it went to Friday nights at 10, and that was the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was I mean, here's the whole thing regarding that. It's really interesting. I don't know if you know about this, Kenzie, but when they had renewed Star Trek for the third season, they had originally planned to showcase Star Trek on a Monday night rather than a different night. It was like I think it was on Thursday nights back in the 60s,
Hmm.
and like a Thursday night, Monday night at like 7:30, 8 o'clock. It'd be like stuff like that. But then the producer of Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, which was one of the most popular shows on television at the time,
Yeah.
kind of like threw a huge fit about it, saying like, if you move my show, I'm not gonna be happy with you. So, yeah, so that's what happened.
Oh.
That's how that's how Star Trek moved from a Monday night time slot to a Friday night time slot, and then it was pretty much like dead. Uh,
Yeah, isn't it funny that like how much like prime time like
yes,
location in like when it shows could completely change how successful a show is. Like that's
yeah,
just so wild to me.
yes, and I completely agree because I know certain shows on the '90s that I remember were successful on Friday nights. The X Files for one, that started on a Friday night. It got moved to Sundays, but I remember that being very successful during the X Files being successful on Friday nights. But stuff like that. But that was a different time era. Time era. So like most of the good successful shows in the '70s were on the weekend. So and it was like I think like shows like All in the Family and MASH. They were on Saturdays, but then they got
Mm-hmm.
yep they were on originally on Saturday nights on CBS. So but it was just like it was just the way things were, and it's really weird that some people can have like influence on the network and stuff like that, and that's why Gene Roddenberry kind of left in the third year.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of left because he was protesting the time slot, even though he was promised a better time slot for Star Trek. Uh, and then when they NBC totally changed their mind on them at the last minute, and he left, and that's why the third season is pretty much all over the place. Um, but then the first season of Next Generation comes along in '87. You can see his influence there in some of the like, especially the way the episodes were written, especially because, like we said before, season one of TNG, aside from generally meh episodes, the season's really bad. Uh, I think I think you agree with me on that, Kenzie. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
So
I agree. I I don't know, like I feel like it's just such a weird thing to like watch the handoff and like how much like drama plays into people coming and going
yeah,
in the Star Trek series and then how it plays out beyond that. Like I think a lot of people, I mean, look at Gene Roddenberry as like the everyone tries to channel him always with Star Trek. Like I mean, Michael Piller and Rick Berman tried really hard to constantly look to him as their resource of how they want to, go about making an episode. Like, what does it mean to like make a Star Trek situation? And you can feel that influence for quite a few years before things kind of start changing and the formula kind of shifts a little bit. And then J.J. Abrams kind of brings in like a really different feel
yeah.
to Star Trek and kind of brings it into this like popular
Hmm.
like action movie kind of like everybody can like Star Trek feel.
Yes, yes, yes. So yeah, definitely in the first season, Gene Roddenberry's influence is there, but not. I mean, it's there, but then it's like towards the end of the first season, it's Maurice Hurley and his influence there. His influence is definitely there in season two, especially
Mm-hmm.
with Maurice Hurley there. I mean, granted, I credit him for creating the Borg. I mean, we should all thank Maurice Hurley for that. One of
Yeah.
the most enduring villains of Star Trek was created by him, um, and stuff like that, and like that. But then when Hurley leaves, the first 3 years of Next Generation are very, very tumultuous. Um, it was especially it was especially known in the William Shatner documentary Chaos on the Bridge. Um, that's a great documentary about the first 3 years of Next Generation. Because writers kept on coming, writers kept on going. I mean, they were either because it was all because of Gene's lawyer. Uh, it was all because of Gene's lawyer Leonard Maislish. He was a guy who was very, very wacky, and stuff like that. And he was pretty much doing a lot of things that were kind of wrong. And that's why a lot of writers and producers left after months, not years, on Next Generation. So, uh, yeah, but it's just Maurice Hurley's influence is definitely there in season two, and it's really that's why I said that's really uneven. Before I said the
Yeah.
first 2 years of Next Generation are very uneven.
And even and also throughout all these too, given like
Mm-hmm.
switches and producers and who's handling
Mm-hmm.
the decision making for the direction of these shows, there's also things like writers protests and things happening where people are protesting pay and other stuff, and you feel that in certain series
Mm-hmm.
where the writing gets really messy and convoluted or kind of
Yes.
confusing because they are suddenly haphazardly grabbing different writers and trying to get stuff still pumped out. But you start feeling that in the later series quite a bit, to the point where just like Star Trek kind of has a moment where they almost fizzle out, like with Enterprise, and it just feels bad.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that kind of
Definitely.
leads into like Rick Berman's era of
Yeah.
Star Trek, where trying to go high and then definitely goes super low.
Yes.
And then on top of the fact that he's just really misogynistic dude, and definitely
Yeah.
plays into the sex sells appeal of Star Trek,
Yeah.
like really trying to give that, like just hearing like the actress for Jadzia like talk about like her experiences with him, with Jerry Ryan talking about her experiences. It's like not a good feel to see that, where it's like, yeah, he might have made some cool decisions. There might have been some like really good episodes and things that happened under his watch, but also, was it worth it? Screwing over Will Wheaton, screwing over Ensign Kim with his
Yeah.
ability to like direct anything. Well, he gave Jonathan Frakes and like everybody else a chance, even Robert Picardo a chance to do some directing and helping produce an episode. But then him, it's like, no, you're an ensign, and we're going to play that out even to real life, but we're just never going to give you a chance to be promoted or try something different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's well documented now about the 18 years that Rick Berman was a part of the franchise, and it's like, yeah, Terry Farrell and Jerry Ryan have always stated that while they were on the show, they had always had conflicts with Rick Berman regarding how their characters were like portrayed. It wasn't just them either. It was Jolene Blaylock from Enterprise. Um, it was very well documented in the third season of Enterprise that Jolene Blaylock actually had argued with um, Rick Berman about the way her character was being portrayed in the
Yep.
series. It's very well documented. I mean, I remember the articles about it I had internet access back in the early 2000s, so I remember seeing all the articles about Blaylock being pissed
Yeah,
about.
I remember my dad like talking quite a bit about drama with, I mean, because Enterprise was that last like that's it, like last straw fizzle
Yeah,
out of Star Trek, and then luckily J.J. Abrams came in. Even though people give J.J. Abrams a lot of hate for changing Star Trek and kind of popularizing it in a way that they don't like. I mean, I think he did a good job opening up and
yeah,
saving Star Trek.
yes, and I completely agree with you on that. But yeah, I know it was like but I know there are some good producers and stuff like that from the Berman era. that we need to have credit for. Michael Pillar for definitely for one. Uh,
Yes.
because when he came on in the third season, the paradigm of Next Generation shifted a thousandfold. Uh,
Yes.
um,
Yeah, that is like something I feel like is almost universal with most Star Trek fans is they will say that third season Next Generation is where, it picks up as a series for
yes,
sure.
yes, because it's not only because he became the head writer of the writers' room, but you had people who had been with the show before, who started in the third year. The only person from retaining from season two was Melinda Snodgrass, who wrote the episode "The Measure of a Man." Um, that was actually one of the only one or two people who stuck around after season two for the writers' room. The other ones I think were Hans Beimler and Richard Manning. Um, they were on in season two, but everyone else had left. But definitely when Michael Piller came on the show, um, he implemented the one thing that Pillar did, which we can get like popular episodes from, is when he decided to let the fan base know we're gonna take your submissions here as fans. You know, if you think we can do a better episode of Next Generation, write an episode, send it to us, and we'll consider
Yeah.
it. And Paramount was kind of like, okay, that's a little out of left field for us, but we'll let you do it because we want
Yeah.
we want this show to be successful. And it was. Next Generation was successful in its first 2 years in terms of like ratings and stuff like that, but it was just like critical critical reception was mixed at best. Um, and fan acceptance was mixed. But definitely when he opened the door for fans to come in and pitch ideas and write episodes, stuff like that. That's how we got Ronald D. Moore and Renee Echevarria from the Next Generation was because they submitted stories for the Next Generation.
Yeah.
Um, we got those people, and that's how we can credit yesterday's Enterprise too. One of the most popular episodes from the third year. That was actually a fan submitted story.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that was a fan submitted story. I mean,
Heck
I
yeah, to Star Trek fans.
yeah, because I mean it was that way until I think towards the end of DS9, I think, or I think when Michael Piller left the franchise in the middle of the 18-year run to do his own thing. But he was still there, but
Yeah.
more as a creative consultant. He
Took a
was
back seat on it.
Yeah, he was there too. But that's how we got like people like Ronald D. Moore, Renee Echevarria, um, stuff like that, or Brandon Braga. That's how we got them was because they were either
Yep,
interns or
B&B, Berman and Braga.
yeah, that's how we got Brandon Braga because he was there as an intern during the fourth year, as part of the Writers Guild of America, and then he ended up being a full-time staff writer, ended up being a producer, and then a creator of Enterprise. Um, but with Michael Piller being at the helm of Next Generation, the paradigm shifts to a more character-oriented Star Trek.
Yeah.
Because the first 2 years of Next Generation are kind of like the original series. They're plot driven, episode of the week, alien of the week kind of thing. But then when Michael Piller comes in, it shifts. It's more of like, here's an episode about Picard. Here's an episode about Data, which was The Offspring, which was Renee Echevarria's first sold script, um, and stuff like that. Or like The Bonding was Ronald D. Moore's first submitted script and was sold and stuff like that. That was a fan submitted script by him and stuff like that. And that episode's amazing. The Bonding's one of my favorites from the third year. But then you got producers like Ira Stephen Bear. He was there in the third year, and who later became the executive producer of Deep Space Nine. So and stuff like that. And it's like without Pillar, I don't think Next Generation probably would have survived.
Yeah. I
Um,
think he's the very integral part of maintaining like some semblance of good characters and probably behind the scenes keeping things at bay, like and keeping characters happy, making sure people are satisfied with what they're playing.
Mhm.
Because there's just so much drama around that too. Like you hear characters who like leave suddenly because of issues with the direction of their characters, like looking at like Will Wheaton or like
Mhm.
looking at issues with the doctor and things like that. And it's hard to understand like what's going on in the background with those and then how they have to like write around characters leaving due to issues. But that
Yeah.
also says a lot about the people who are influencing Star Trek in the first place. Like, why do people want to leave? Why do people not want to work on this project? Or how do we change this so that people actually are proud of what they're doing?
Yes. Yes, and that's pretty much what it was. But then we got to think about Jerry Taylor, you know. Um Jerry Taylor who started in Next Generation in season 4. Um and stuff like that. She was a writer first, but then eventually became a showrunner for the final year of Next Generation, and went on to co-create Voyager, um, with Michael Piller and Rick Berman, um, and stuff like that. So, I mean, when Jerry Taylor joins the show, the female characters are written a lot better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
They're written a lot better when Jerry Taylor becomes part of the show. Um, I mean, she does. She knows how to write for women, obviously, because she's a woman herself.
Yep.
But but I know with like characters like Troy and Crusher and Ro, for example, if she writes an episode of Ro, I'm not sure, but definitely when she writes an episode with that features Crusher or Troy, she writes them like a woman would say how a woman would say these things. So yeah, definitely you can't think about Jerry Taylor and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah, Jerry Taylor, and then yeah. And who else did I think? Brian Braga with the weird episodes, definitely.
Yeah. He just wanted so badly to, you know, be impressive under Rick Berman. So he just like was like a constant little like lapdog to Berman. So
Yeah, yeah. And then can't think about like people like Manny Koto from Enterprise. You know, I mean he started in the third year, and then he became he came the showrunner in the fourth year. And the fourth year of Enterprise is generally regarded as probably like the last good year of Star Trek by those people
yeah.
who hate Abrams and Kurtzman. But um, and I don't think it was, and I don't think the reason why Enterprise failed was because of franchise fatigue. It was because of fan toxicity.
Yeah.
Um, I really firmly believe that because when Enterprise first started in 2001, it was just a few weeks after 9/11,
Yeah.
and stuff like that, and also it was it was very controversial because it was a prequel, and we had a
hmm
prequel, and because we had prequelitis already starting with
Yeah.
Star Wars,
hmm
so- and and it was just controversial, and there was people who just let their thoughts be known about how they felt about Enterprise. Like I hate this crap. Um, I think I think this is Targ manure. And stuff like that. It was very well known that the internet forums back in the day, um, it was very well known about that. And it's kind of like, isn't that kind of what's happening now? You see parallels
yeah.
between that and what's happening now on social media platforms about
hmm
how they feel about Kurtzman era Star Trek. Um,
Yeah.
and and it's like, oh come on, seriously, you really want to? And I hear people comment all the time like, Kurtzman Star Trek should be Berman Star Trek. Okay, do you really want female characters to be sexy and not written well? Do you really want female cast members to express their displeasure about how their characters are written because
Yeah. It's like
because they're
these people don't
written?
want to actually play the people that you're asking them to.
Yes. Do you really want that? You really want that again? Um, it's like I hear that, I see that all the time, and I always just say it. Do you really want that happening again? Go watch that video about Berman Trek, and then come back to me and say, okay, I think you're right. But yeah, but definitely, yeah, and we can talk about Abrams, you're right. He did bring Star Trek in more in the mainstream, and if it wasn't for him, you know, probably Star Trek would have died there, then and there.
Yeah.
Um, it wasn't for him, but it's like Paramount trusted him. They trusted him with rebooting Star Trek. And it's a good thing that
I
he
feel like
did.
it's a hard job. I know he gets a lot of flack for it,
Yeah,
and a lot of people like say that he didn't like do much with it. But I'm like, I think that's kind of the whole point, right? Like he tried not to mess with it too much, and he rebooted it. He was trying to get it with like a more popular, giving it a facelift, and trying to like get people to play these characters that people would actually latch onto. Like having Chris Pine as Kirk was a great decision. So many people I know just wanted to see that just because of that. And then having Zachary Quinto playing Spock, that was exciting after, everyone loved Heroes, and
yep,
I think it's just exciting to see him back in action. And the moment that was the moment that they announced that choice, I was like, oh, that's so perfect, because that's who I thought of. I thought of Spock when I saw him, even in Heroes, and I was like, that is amazing, great job. But I personally like J.J. Abrams' Star Trek, like in his whole Kelvin timeline. Like I enjoy it a lot.
yeah. I enjoy the movies too. I mean, granted, I put Beyond at the top,
Yes,
and
Beyond is amazing.
yeah, Beyond is at the top, and then it's '09, and then it's In the Darkness. And that's just my personal opinion.
I hold it the same way too.
Yeah, because I know In the Darkness, people either love it or hate it, and I know the people who hate it is because of Khan, but
Yeah.
but I consider In the Darkness to be Space Seed on steroids, not Wrath of Khan on steroids.
Yeah, it feels more like that for sure.
Yeah, more like Space Seed more than Wrath of Khan. But yeah, but everyone's saying like, why did you put Khan in there? you know,
Yeah, the moment that I kind of figure like when they started like announcing it and they're trying to keep it all like hush hush, I'm like, nah, it's just gonna literally be Wrath of Khan happening again, but like
yeah,
a little slightly changed because ooh, different timeline.
yeah, and it was slightly different. I mean, granted, there's a lot of messages, post 9/11 messages in the darkness, but people
Yeah.
always like are always honed in of like, why did you wash Khan and put Benedict Cumberbatch? I mean,
Yeah.
he's a great actor. Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor. I mean, I've seen him in other things, but like, why did you have to wash Khan? I see that all the time. When I hear In the Darkness, I go like, I see that comment. Like, why did you whitewash Khan?
Yeah. That was a little bit of an
Yeah,
interesting choice.
yeah, it was an interesting choice. I mean, it's a decent movie. I mean, it's good in good parts and and some parts are bad. I mean, unfortunately, the bikini scene with Alice Eve in the shuttle was kind of like not needed.
Yeah. A little weird.
Yeah, we didn't need that.
I was like,
Um,
was Rick Berman involved in that?
sounds like he was, but no, no, no. But but
At
yeah,
least going back to that a little bit, like with Berman and Braga, at least Braga had a little bit of redemption because he worked on Cosmos later, which is pretty
yep,
sweet. And then the Orville, of course, because he was
yep,
like working with Seth MacFarlane on both of those projects. And I personally really like the Orville. And he did a lot for other shows that ended up being
yeah,
nice. Like I mean, he worked on Terra Nova,
yep.
and
He created
I
that one.
think yeah, and I'm like that is I mean, and I really like that show too. My dad and I both really like Terra Nova, so I'm like, I think he came out all right, was able to kind of redeem himself a bit, but that's a
Yeah,
hard like just hearing like that whole saga of Braga with Berman. There's a
yeah,
lot of complaints from that era.
yes. And it's just like they shoulder the blame. They still do. For the failure of Enterprise. Um, because you know Enterprise could have been very, very good, but unfortunately it had the distinction of being very, very bad first. Um, you know, I mean, they had a lot of ambitious plans for Enterprise, but they couldn't do it because UPN wanted like what happened before. Um, like they wanted the first season set on Earth. They wanted the first season of Enterprise set on Earth, and then the end of the season would be the launch of the NX-01. Um, but they couldn't do it because UPN said we want the space show. We want a space show. So you have to consider Netflix meddling too, and how poor quality of shows.
Yeah.
Uh, granted, when Voyager and Enterprise were on UPN, they had criticisms, stuff like that, but it's just like when it was Enterprise, it just they started getting notes from the network about like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Voyager they didn't have very many,
Yeah, I was
but
gonna say like that mostly just Voyager kind of like yeah, that was all over the place too. Like
yes,
everybody had a little touch with Voyager. I mean, I think the one thing I remember from that like near the end there was Ronald Moore with Braga. Like they kind of had some issues near the end. They
hmm
were like good longtime friends, and then they like he only worked on Voyager like for a few weeks, and then he just like quit because of some issues with him, I guess. And
yes,
then you could feel that in the sixth season of Voyager, like sixth and seventh season. I feel like Voyager was very, I don't know, like
weird,
just rushed, weird feeling.
yeah, yes, and yes, Ronald D. Moore did write an episode of Voyager. That was after he DS9 had ended.
Yep.
Um, the episode Bards of the Dead. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Yeah,
was
which is like kind of a weird episode too, I guess.
yeah, I think it's a weird episode, but it's a good Klingon episode,
Yeah, I
definitely.
really, yeah, he explains a lot about Balana's whole thing, and you get to hear about like her relationship with her mom and everything too.
Yeah, and I think he wrote the story for a Survival Instinct too. I think he did that. He did that. I think he was on Voyager for like the first few months of the season, and then he left. And then
Yeah, it wasn't
because
very long. He
no,
is very short lived.
yeah, he
He
didn't last
transferred
very long.
after Deep Space Nine, and
Yeah, he didn't last very long on Voyager. And that was the last Star Trek episode he wrote was Bards of the Dead, and he hasn't written
yep,
an episode of Star Trek since. Um, even though a lot of people are going like, bring him back, bring him back. Like, well, he's busy doing a different show. So
yeah,
right now on Apple TV, For All Mankind, which is an alternate version of the Space Race. Um,
yeah. Which that's cool.
yeah, he does that show now, and then he did Battlestar Galactica. Um,
Yep.
the reboot of Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but definitely with Ronald D. Moore, yeah, they had a falling out and stuff like that, and they've reconciled since. I remember
Yeah.
Braga saying that, but somewhere, but during the time of Voyager, they had a falling out,
Yep.
so which is kind of sad because
I didn't realize I was like reading up on Braga because I was just like I know he had like worked with other things, but I didn't realize he had dated Jerry Ryan. Like
yeah, yep,
I
at
did
one
not
point,
realize that. I did
yeah,
not know that. Like I was just like reading through it and I just saw something like weird like about them getting stalked or something weird and I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was like, "I didn't even know he like dated her first of all." And then I was like, "Well, that's random."
yeah. I remember that. I remember that they were dating for about 3 years. During the production of Voyager. I know that. So and it's like whenever Jerry Ryan had a problem, you can hear a call from the set to Braga. Hey, your girlfriend's acting up. Can you come down? I can
Yeah.
just see that
What
happening.
a interesting dynamic. I think it'd be very intense.
I mean, I just imagining that happening, Kenzie. It's like if she had a problem with a episode or something like that, or a line she had to say,
Your girlfriend wants you.
your girlfriend wants you to come down. He's probably in the Hart building at Paramount, and he's like, he gets a call. He's like, "Hey, your girlfriend's having issues. Come down, please."
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, yeah, it was like for like 3 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And, yeah,
That was just like a weird thing because I was just trying to be like, I didn't know so much about like the handoffs of like some of these like producers and stuff, but just like how that worked because like it gets a little muddy for me. Like I know like it's at least like the Gene Roddenberry to like Michael Piller and everything, and then the J.J. Abrams, but like I didn't like read that much about like Kurtzman and stuff like, and because I just haven't like followed as much with the newer series and how people perceive that. But
Yeah, it's a hit and miss with
yeah,
regarding
I'm like
Kurtzman Trek.
I feel like there's very like polar opposite reactions. Like either people really love Kurtzman or absolutely hate Kurtzman.
Yeah, and I see this all the time. Like, Kurtzman
I
was
feel like
fired
it's
today.
yeah, there's like a really big thing of like the new Trek type of stuff with with that. So
Yeah,
and it
and it's
seems to be synonymous with that, where it's like if you hate new Trek, you're gonna obviously hate Kurtzman.
yeah, exactly. And we can't think about like the other. We can't think about think about the other people who have been created his the shows that are on now,
Yep.
like Michael Chabon and Kiva Goldsman and Kristen Beyer and Mike McMahon and the Dan and Kevin Hageman, for who created Prodigy, um, and stuff like that. You know, I mean, those people are fantastic people. You know, I mean, Akiva Goldsman, I've been a fan of him for like a long time, and I thought it was pretty cool when he joined Star Trek, and I think, oh, this is cool
Yeah.
because the only thing I've seen of his work prior to when he was on Discovery and stuff like that was the big screen adaptation of Lost in Space
Oh
because
yeah.
he wrote the screenplay. And I thought the 1998 version of Lost in Space is actually a really good movie. I mean,
Yeah.
people love it or hate it, but I love the that adaptation of Lost in Space. And he wrote the screenplay, and I thought, oh, but for the longest time I thought Akiva Goldsman was a woman, not a man. But but
Yeah.
but when I first saw him in an interview for Discovery, and I thought, oh, he's not a woman, he's a man.
Yeah.
Because Akiva sounds more like a woman's name than a man's name.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, it's a woman who wrote this. Okay, okay, okay. And then I see this Akiva Goldsman, and he's a guy.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like that was a
the
shock to
power of
me.
names. Always
Yeah,
surprising.
yeah. And then we got Michael Chabon. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning author,
Yeah.
and he created Picard and stuff like that. And he's a very great writer. I mean, if there's one thing that people enjoy about Kurtzman Trek is the fact is the episodes that Shavon had written for Picard, when I think he wrote Nepenthe and stuff like that, and then the Short Treks episode Calypso, people generally regard those as great Star Trek.
Hmm.
um, out of the whole Kurtzman era, so so far, um, and stuff like that, and and I think it's still I think Kurtzman Trek is great. I mean, granted, I kind of had a problem with the serialization, but I don't mind it,
Hmm.
and I'm looking forward to the episodic version with a live action version with Strange New Worlds.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm looking
yeah,
forward to that too. I
yeah,
be a nice change in pace.
yes, definitely. And with Strange New Worlds, we actually have some first-time directors in that show. One is actually a transgendered Native American, so more power to it. I think that's one thing that Kurtzman Trek has actually tried to do
Yeah, people will sit
is
there and try to. It's always people decrying where it's like, "Ooh, SJW stuff," but I'm like, they're looking at the world around them, and this is fan service. You're not the main fan anymore. You're not the only fans of Star Trek, and
hmm
Star Trek has always been about fan service. Like
yes,
whether or not you like to agree, maybe there was a different majority in the fan service, but this is fan service as it always has been. And people who complain, it's like, well, then you're obviously not keeping up with the times because that is a huge, I mean, literally the driving force of Star Trek. So this is what the
yeah,
people want.
yes, and with I think that's one thing that Kurtzman Trek is actually trying to do is that they've recruited minorities for writers and directors. Um, like people like Kalinda Vasquez, who is writing a movie for Star Trek. and she is Mexican American. So that kind of thing. I forgot the name of the transgender Native American, but she's directing an episode of Strange New Worlds. Hanelle
Mm-hmm.
Culpepper, for example, she's the first woman to actually of color to direct an episode of Star Trek. First woman of color. Because they had women
And
directors
see, giving
before.
that space to do
Yeah.
that is a big deal too, because that's like my big like there are some great episodes that happened under like Rick Berman, obviously, but like there is definitely a little bit of a power play in not letting certain people direct stuff and
Yes.
not giving people a chance at having a say and influence in episode writing. And you can feel that in an older series. And I feel like that's something like even if people whatever they want to say about Alex Kurtzman, he gives opportunities, like there is like opportunities for like making sure that people have a say and diversity being a huge thing and making sure that representation plays into that.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Definitely regarding, with the Berman era, not everyone on the cast directed episodes. I mean, the same thing happened with DS9 and TNG, and even Enterprise never had a cast member direct. But maybe because of the poor taste that Berman had with Garrett Wong. But who knows? But uh, but it was always, yeah. But yeah, I remember Garrett Wong like wanted to direct, and Berman said no. Um, maybe because they with Berman, he had a list of directors he wanted all the time. You can tell
Mm-hmm.
because it was either Jonathan Frakes, LeVar Burton, Robert Duncan McNeil, um, uh, what was the other ones I'm thinking of? Like Alan Croker from he directed all the series finales except for the Next Generation finale. Winrick Colby and stuff like that. He already had a list of directors on that list. Now I think they actually, you know, they probably thinking they just contact them and say, "Can you write this episode for us?" And they
Yeah.
more likely to say they will. Um, and I think Strange New Worlds lately has been especially Strange New Worlds. I've seen the social media posts on from some of the directors and stuff like that, and it's been minority directors, which is I think is a very good thing. It's actually given given the diversity of Star Trek, I think it's a great thing, you know. And because you had Hanelle Culpepper who directed the first 3 episodes of Picard. She's the first
Mm-hmm.
woman to launch a Star Trek show. You know, from the get go, woman and woman of color. So, but definitely, with Hanelle Culpepper doing that, and I think she won the Image Award for it. I think, yeah, she did. NAACP Image Award
Yeah.
for the first episode of Picard.
Cool.
So, definitely, um, I think that's one thing that Kurtzman Trek has been trying to do, and I applaud them 100% for that, having writers of minorities. Like I know, Bo Yeon Kim is Asian American. And she's creating the Section 31 show, Still Bubbling, with Erica Lippold, who is also a woman. So I think that's a great thing. They're putting like women writers in the writers' room because there weren't many on during the Berman era.
Yeah.
So
And I feel like that's a combination of things like not giving access to that and also women not wanting to work with him in general.
yeah,
So it's like
I mean
I
Jerry
feel like
Cherubin.
now there's like
Yeah,
a space for them to actually come in and be comfortable and be a part of that creative process comfortably.
yeah. I mean, granted, there's been firings already under Kurtzman watch. Kurtzman's
Yeah.
watch. It would be Gretchen Berg and Aaron Harberts, who were fired during the production of season 2 of Discovery, after it was discovered that they had an HR problem. Uh, but but then you gotta think of Michelle Paradise. I forgot about her. She's the showrunner now of Discovery.
Oh
And
yeah.
she's done a fantastic job. I think she does a fantastic job, especially at the end of season 3 where they put that they chose a quote from Roddenberry in the end of the season to like give a message of hope, because I thought that was a great quote. I thought
Yeah.
it was a great quote at the end of season three because it's pretty much giving a hope that we will all get to back together again because as we all know, season three aired during the height of the pandemic. So
Which that's like why it resonates so much.
yeah, yeah, it does. And people were either going like, "Why is Michelle Paradise using a quote from Gene Roddenberry? She's not a Star Trek. She doesn't belong in the franchise." And it's like, oh come on, seriously?
Yeah, I hate that.
I hate that
I
too.
hate the gatekeeping around Star Trek and what should be considered like the like actual canon. And I'm like, you don't get to choose. Like,
Yeah, you don't. Yes, you don't get to choose, and I mean, it just bothers me. It really does. I mean, it just bothers me, and it's like you really want things to go back to the way they were. You really want Berman era Trek again? You really do? Seriously? It's like, come on. That's how I feel about it. I mean, yeah, because it's gonna be. I mean, but if you really want '90s Trek, go watch the Orville.
yeah, exactly. I'm like,
Yeah,
you
you really
can,
want the bad things the way things work? Go watch Orville. And I mean, we still don't know when that's gonna premiere. We still don't know. I mean, Discovery season four might be before them. Who knows? And we're two up on you. But that's okay. I guess that's all I have to say. Oh, I forgot to mention there are a few other people like Gene L. Kuhn and Dorothy Fontana. You know.
yeah, there's a lot of people who have worked on Star Trek, and I'm sure we could spend much more time, talking
Yes.
about this too. But if you have any directors or people that you thought should have been mentioned in this, we'd like to hear it because
Yes.
I know that for some people it's really important, like what some people have done, even if it's just like an episode that someone wrote or you know like briefly helped with producing the show or had some influence. But it's like it's a big deal, like to see that. I think there's plenty of stories of people influencing Star Trek and making something of it.
Yes. Yep, that's my final. Yeah, it's a great final thought there, Kenzie. Yeah, there's plenty of them, but yeah, I know that people. I know we forgot there's plenty more like directors, writers, producers that you think that should have been included, and we may have forgotten about them. So it's how you personally perceive the producers and stuff like that, and influencers of Star Trek. Um, granted, they're all responsible for the success of Star Trek. It's all a credit to the writers, producers, actors, everything else. The creators definitely Berman, yeah, or Kurtzman, yeah, Gene Roddenberry, yeah. But you know that's a testament to the sustainability of Star Trek for this long, and hopefully it will endure for decades to come.
Exactly.
Yep. So until next time, take care and live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.